Welcome, everyone. My name is Cynthia Lawson Jaramillo. I'm the Dean of the School of Design Strategies, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our 20th Weiss Lecture Series, also first on-campus lecture since the pandemic, so both exciting. Before we start tonight's events, many in our community have been deeply affected by the tragedies in Turkey and Syria. So I'd like you to please join me in a moment of silence for our friends, family, loved ones, brothers and sisters. Thank you. Let me welcome, please, Dr. Renee White, Provost of the University of the New School.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so pleased to be here. As Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs, it is absolutely my pleasure to welcome you to the New School for the 20th anniversary Stephan Weiss Lecture by the distinguished Colombian educator and scholar, Dr. Alfredo Gutiérrez Borrero. So public programs like tonight really are opportunities to connect our university with scholars, innovators, and designers across the world and anchor the intellectual life of our community in New York City and beyond. Here at the New School, our students, our faculty, and staff explore how design contributes to our communities through sustainability, civic engagement, and social justice. As we'll hear tonight in Dr. Gutierrez Borrero's lecture focused on design Souths, decolonial approaches are crucial to ensuring our teaching and learning aligns with our mission towards advancing equity, justice, and inclusion. So before I invite my colleague to share more about tonight's series, I would like to thank the Karan-Weiss Foundation on behalf of the university for their generous support in endowing this lecture series for the past 20 years at the New School. I would also like to thank our colleagues in the School of Design Strategies for presenting this landmark event and invite you all to join us afterward for a reception that will follow tonight's lecture. So to explain more about the Weiss Lecture Series, please join me in welcoming Executive Dean of Parsons, Yvonne Watson.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Provost White. And good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome each and every one of you here tonight, this evening, to this event. So the Stephan Weiss Lecture Series was launched in 2002. 2002, to commemorate the life of the late artist and sculptor, Stephan Weiss, husband and business partner of fashion designer, Parsons alumni, Parsons Board of Governors member, and friend, Donna Karan. Over the past 19 years, the lectures have allowed us to share the work of important figures from the world of business, design, art, government, journalism, and academia with the New School community and public at large, and to support research and dialogue, exploring how design may contribute to industry, as well as to the general well-being of individuals and communities, to social and environmental sustainability, and to innovative types of democratic participation and civic engagement. The lecture series is complemented by the Journal of Design Strategies, a publication of the School of Design Strategies, and the primary vehicle through which we disseminate the conversations that start in the Weiss Lectures along with associated content. Today's lecture will connect with an upcoming issue. Both the Stephan Weiss Lecture Series and the Journal of Design Strategies are made possible by an endowment established by the Karan-Weiss Foundation. Donna Karan, Gabrielle Karan, Corey Weiss, and Lisa Weiss. We are truly grateful to these members of the Karan and Weiss families for their generous gifts they have each made to support the lecture series and the journal. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, I would like to convey my gratitude to the School of Design Strategies Leadership, Dean Cynthia Lawson-Jaramillo, Associate Dean Mark Randall, and Associate Director Molly Davey. An additional and special thank you to Program Administrator Jonathan Yubi Gomez, who managed Alfredo's visit to our campus with great care and patience as we had to postpone the original fall date. So I would now like to introduce tonight's speaker, Dr. Alfredo Gutiérrez Borrero. I hope I haven't butchered that too much. Okay. So interested in pasts that lead to other futures and futures that come from other pasts. Zoo technician from La Salle University, Colombia, specialist in university teaching from the Military University, Nueva Granada, Colombia, Master in Gender Studies, Women and Development Area, National University of Colombia, and Doctor in Design and Creation from Caldas University in Colombia, with highest honors thesis. Born in Bogotá, he began teaching design in 1993 at the Jorge Tadeo Lozano University in the Colombian capital, where he has consolidated his entire career and which he serves as professor in the area of degree project of the Industrial Design Program. Inspired by Dr. Gutiérrez Borrero's work, I think there is something very special and unique about the moment that we are in, and his work intersects with our own concerns around whose epistemologies, for whom, power in, power over, for whom we can say is the designer. Who do we call a designer? So it's a parallel to the commitments that we have to inclusive pedagogy and decolonizing design. I'm looking forward to tonight's lecture and then to the Q&A that will be moderated by Dean Cynthia Lawson-Jaramillo. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Alfredo.
Thank you, Provost René. Thank you, Dr. Imon. Thank you, Mark and Molly and Cynthia and all of you. It's an honor for me to be here. As my soul is in Spanish, I am going to say hello in Spanish from the bottom of my heart. Es un gran gusto estar aquí. No va a ser la conferencia en español, sino en inglés, pero me gusta hablar un poco en español porque lo hablo bastante mejor. Un gran gusto estar aquí. I am a man of my land, a man of my city, 100% Colombian product, and for that I like to remind that to everyone. It's an honor to be here. Probably I'm going to learn much more about this community of the Parsons University than you about me, and it's great the feeling. I apologize probably because my language could be confused and my wording strange, but it's going to be an opportunity to start a conversation with you about my PhD dissertation and research of the last year. Well, we are going to talk, which this lecture is going to be about. I am going to talk about dissolvents. I'm going to explain what is and when design proliferates as the other. I remember with my friend and professor Klaus Krippendorf with their semantic term. He is kind of the person who put me in the line to explain what meanings, relation between meanings and artifacts. He passed away some months ago. Well, I must warn, as I told, that this is a work in progress, sometimes full of neologisms, but I am against generalizations, pluralizations, and translations that erase the particularities and make us think too fast and almost always wrongly that we understand what we don't have understand yet, and that we ignore. This was the same frame that my PhD dissertation is kind of a journey. Every one of the 5 chapters is related with a step in a journey. The first one is when you are thinking about where you are going to travel. The second one is when you choose a destination. The third one is the moment you are going to your destination. The fourth is when you arrive to the place you wish to visit. And the fifth is what you brought in your suitcase after when the journey ended. First is the exile, and exiling ourselves from design. Design as usual. Industrial design, I am since 30 years ago part of Jorge Tadeo Lozano University, and it's an honor represent my community here in a classic industrial design faculty or house of studies. Then design has his voids because it's a meaning-making activity that supplies decision and direction to human elaboration, but happens in a pre-designed and often unnoticed environment. A body of ideas, practices born especially from Western tradition. His purpose is to anticipate forms and uses that artifacts, expectations, desires, even problems should or may have. And critical designs as problematic solutions. Mainstream design, of course, has benefits and drawbacks that critical design curates attempt to improve, but often critical design brings new problems, amplifying what they seek to solve. Design, for me, acts like the plantation. You remember that institution of monocultural colonial exploitation that produces and reproduces the same and preys on their surrounding to fit the center. If only design is sound, even if it's critical, only design will be harvested, and that's a problem for me. Because design, in certain degree, is West. Critical books on design, such as the one referred there, show that West and design are so intertwined that at the end, design is the West. This applies everywhere on the planet where design operates under the name design. History, school. It is difficult to find a critical approach to design, be it patriarchal, criticisms of patriarchal design, racist, capitalist, etc., that doesn't also question the West. Ignoring this leaves the criticisms incomplete. For that reason, I like to go outside the design. Is asking myself, is design present since prehistory in all human groups? My approach through indigenous talks, Aymara, Quechua, Maori, Lakota, led me to suggest that instead of design, many people had and have other practices that within their understanding, customs, and traditions play a role similar, different to that of design in Western and Westernized contexts. Designs that are not. For that reason, the arrow is to the other. Novelty is also an obsession of design. A lot of things that I'm going to try to make myself sense in front of you are not new, not novel for the people who understand it's some many centuries ago. The challenge, can we abandon, occasionally at least, the design plantation and opt for exile instead of escape of it. In that paragraph, I'm grateful to Bayo Akomolafe, the Yoruba thinker who is the man who sparked this idea. Going into exile from design is refusing to recognize the power of its regime of meaning, quit his term, his logics and histories, in contrast to flee from it, carrying all that, as many critical designs do, which inevitably brings us back to the very thing from which we are trying to escape. Choosing the path. The South was my spine of departure. The South as trope of oblivion, rejection, delight places, yet to be North, to be included, dissolved by the hierarchical, vertical ordering knowledge of the world. Knowledge created by the same peoples who created the term world. In a cartoonish way, the North and the West are masculine, the right, the head and chest of human civilization that advances towards a glorious future, while the South and the East are the feminine, back and feet anchored in the past. The same, or not the same, the South is studied by de Sousa Santos, Esterman, Casano, Dainoto, Obarrio, Rosa, Connell, Komarov, and many others. The South of design and the design of the South. I like to use the metaphor of the South of design was in an imaginary map of design was under the map of design, and how every South was designed itself. More than a South, many Souths, that from design also interested colleagues as Cambarier, Murray, Ansari, Alvarez, Calderon, Escobar, Willis, Fry, Kiem. When with them, or working with them, I elaborated 10 years ago my own ideas of the designs of the South, on what was designed in each South and how each South was itself designed and with what design, but I thought that insufficient. I was not looking for design, but other similar practices, the designs of the others. The other, the trope of the South, even in plural, was insufficient for me when thinking about designs external to design, and I began to speak of design otherwise, some colleagues said, and not of another design, not something that you can equate with more than what we or you already know. These designs other would be constructed forms alien to the guidelines often applied to design or distant from them, similar and different, equi-altervalent. At that point, I draw in the work of intercultural thinker Raymond Panikkar of homeomorphic equivalent that cannot be equated with what I already know. I thought that continuing to call those practice designs exerts on all othernesses the violence of classification. Other names. My doctoral research at the Caldas University in Manizales, Colombia, or University City, a beautiful place that I love a lot. My doctoral research was based on approaches that reject or are suspicious of methodologies as ways to turn the different into the same. As like in a pipe, you put the problem in the methodological pipe, at the end of the pipe you get the same results. Such an Antonio Garcia is one of my mentor and professor, is communicologist from Spain. There are some readings of him in English about the classification, a theory that for me is even powerful than the coloniality. Or Alejandro Haber, Argentinian archaeologist, concept of no methodology. Insight from another Colombian archaeologist made me realize that I was not looking for alternative designs, but for alternatives to design. It was necessary to get out of that name, of that plantation, exile and no escape. Then I began to talk about designs with other names, an idea that I worked on with my colleague Colombian designer Pablo Calderon, and was picked up by Arturo Escobar, and especially by Yoko Akama, who I am grateful for that. This ignorance, introducing dissobons, The signal is an idea that I recovered because my mentor, my professor, that I love, and the guilty of my career in a great degree, that is Arturo Escobar, encouraged me to recover. In a text named When Design Goes South, a text I wrote for a volume edited by Tony Fry and Adam Nozick, I presented the idea of designorance, invented perhaps by others in other sense, exists, is a name of some tweeters, as all that knowledge ignored by design and designers, because they don't know it, or worse, because they don't want to know it. There I also introduced the idea of desovons, in Espanol, disocons, in Portuguese, desocons. Instead, it appears firstly in an interview in Portuguese. For that reason, I don't know why, but in Brazil, several scholars like my work. And if I told you a secret, last year I have been invited by several important institutions like this one. And when I am the plane going to Sao Paulo, or Rio de Janeiro, or Buenos Aires, or Oaxaca in Mexico here, I feel in the seat and say, I don't know, nothing to say about why I in this. I am just pretending to construct something, but perhaps something here about it. In that paper, I introduced the idea of desovons that prompted this lecture and ended up being the title of my PhD awarded high honor thesis dissertation on the way. Then, what are desovons? Desovons are an acronym, an abbreviation. Look at the capital letters for designs of the South, of the South's others by other names. Is all my journey trying to exile of the word design, not to suppress, to destroy, but just trying to say ways of respectfully name what is at the other side of the fence. Design makes sense in this side, but in the others, other things, other practices appear. And then they are just an intra-academic acronym and abbreviation, not intended to replace the words or ways of others when it finds them. When it finds the words of the others are replaced by the words of the others. It's just inner of the academy that perhaps could have some utility. There is no such a thing as Alakota or Maori or Samoan or Mapuche or Wayuu desovons. Desovons offers a respectful inquiry into the ways in which many peoples call their materializing practices without including them by default within the design domain, nor casting over them the shadow of homogenization. What do they offer to the design field? The possibility of acting through alternatives to the master categories of comparison. I mean, in addition to the design activity as usual. Design, as commonly understood by the westernized world, created by modernity, might not apply to all cultures and practice of makings and creating. As a universalized local invention, design often reduces the unique practices and ways of creation of many people to discrete and comparable previously known stuff. And so, desovons shows us that perhaps design is not the only way to design, nor research the only way to research, nor sets of everything in all human groups are necessarily words. And that is possible to avoid the metric of the same. By means of them, we can even partially stop using the words and manners of the world that wants to command as units of measurement and action, and act from what mean in every case the otherness. But how do we do that? Apparently, savvy people realize that professional designs are just a small part of Western and Westernized designs, and Westernized and Western designs are a small part of all designs. But most of what we call design is not design at all. It comprises a multiplicity of ways of creating, otherwise that we cannot equate, as I told you, with more than we already know. Therefore, from a design standpoint, in a classic professor of my school, The Sobons will be passed wrong amok, outside of themselves, because using Marcelo C. Rosas, Brazilian sociologist, whose non-exemplar theory influenced a lot my work, they are not non-exemplary forms or forms other, what cannot be taken just but as examples of more types of more cases of design. In their journey to other cultures, designers might have to relinquish his dominance and power to define, divide, and categorize them. When design renounces itself, it unlocks new possibilities for creation and innovation that would be impossible if it were to maintain his traditional dominating approach, especially the belief that is the one and only way. Alice along the way. I'm not going to go deep inside this project, but I invite you to explore them. Safina projects, the project Rashad Salim in Mesopotamia about reimagining the Ark of Noah according to all the boat and canoes abilities and skills of the people of Iraq and Turkey and all these countries that you usually from stereotype imagination relate with sand and desert. Is very, very interesting. And we must to take into account, to use another idea of indigenous scholar, to get kind of trans-systemic synthesis from Choctaw Native American Henderson and Mi'kmaq Mary Baptiste. We must break the gravitational field, ontological, cosmological, etymological, actually all kind of logical of design as a modern and totalizing form of convert and devour into adjectives. Perhaps the more important part, inspired, as I told you, by Cristobal Génico, of the same word design. All creative materializing practices of all human growth. You just take the word design and apply an adjective. Indigenous, pluriversal, decolonial, autonomous design. May gods and design find each other again, to use the phrase of Canadian thinker, especially in the dead culture, Stephen Jenkinson, a white that for me thinks that like Native American, to all the gods of the holy places and their people, including all gods who remain sure at the God of design that they are the only ones, and all people who remain sure that they are too. May humans and gods find each other again, as it was, and may their time together out in the age of town commence and continue. Alice along the way, I did my internship in Auckland, New Zealand, the Technological University of Auckland. My mentor were Johnson Bitehira, who is Maori, and Albert Refiti, who is a thinker, a Maori thinker. Johnson Bitehira Maori and Albert Refiti Samoan. Bamoana Pacific Space is a platform of research that symmetrizes Western architecture with Polynesian ways of construction. It's a very, very interesting platform. Findings on the trip. The character of DC Comics scared me a lot when I was a child. Back in 1975, the name The Equalizer. The Equalizer confront Batman and Superman, all the Justice League of America, and their power was equalize all of them. When the heroes confront him, Superman can fly less, and all of the other can fly a little. Batman was less smart, and the other a little bit more. But instead of heroes, you have some average guys without power to solve the problems. That happened with me with the known design. It's the same as the Equalizer. As I called it, the Jim All adapter problem. Almost all designers say that there has been design since prehistoric times, and it exists everywhere. But none of us were in the prehistory. And they travel through time and space with a universal adapter that allows them to connect everything else's plug to our same socket. And it happened a lot of times with all the Western disciplines. For me, today in the class of professor, I say, with respect to Chinese people, that there's no such a thing as Chinese art. Of course, from the Western world, we can say that's Chinese art, but do we know the word that Chinese people use for that? I assure that the root is not in our etymology or linguistic, it's another root. I am concerned with this continuous act of making the other and the other compatible, of transforming it into the same other, which ends up being the same itself. Can design be less toxic? Think about design toxicity as data toxicity. Vamos a, in Spanish, a criticar the uncritical repetition of forms of generalization that ignore the specificities and particularities of lands and people and places. The goal of the exile from design is to promote the co-evolution of diverse and heterogeneous creative possibilities without being limited by the constraints of just one term. Let us try alternative paths. This idea of one of my PhD advisor, the Argentinian designer Martin Avila, who's recently published this book, of the idea of design with care in order to get the users, the people, the possibility to receive all artificial artifacts in harmony with their environment. We must to assure that our design can get natives of the lands they are put into the motions. We must design our designs, giving them the possibility to enter in a process of nativization in all the places and lands they arrive, with ecological and biological constraint of the particular places where they will be used. I coined a lot of words. In fact, it put me dangerously near to philosophy, without near philosophy, without sociology, without a lot of things, without being in any. But I like to coin the idea of polycardinal instead of non-Western, to say coming from every direction, and the idea of untranslatable, impluriversal, because desobons, I put the desobons in front of the unique world, which for me is the only world, the only one where the thing operates, present himself as a huge exteriority accessible by multiple paths that lead to multiple destinations, which allow design to ignore itself, to feel and think without that name and without research, ontology, epistemology, without concepts, without methodologies, categories, paradigms, without design and without world, with any nomi nor any sophy nor logic. You know, try to understand from the other languages. And I pay homage to the work of Thomas Clement Mercier, who criticized the acritic use of the idea of pluriverse, that is, one of whose promoters is none other than Arturo Escobar. It's a very, very interesting idea, because a lot of people just replace universe for pluriverse and keep on going the business as usual. Along the way, I have the privilege to partner with designers of a lot of southern, subaltern, and different countries in the group of pluriversal working group, part of the Future Design Education, the guide on company of my colleague Leslie Ann Noel. And I like to criticize a pluriverse like this: a world where many worlds fit, as the Zapatista motto, or a what where many what fit. When speaking of interculturalism, it is assumed that the culture A is easy to compare with culture B and culture C. And we're talking about the world of many worlds. We assume that every worlds are measurable to each other, that there are a universe A, a universe B, a universe C, similar to 1 centimeter to another centimeter, and becoming the pattern of measure as gold standard or dollar to regular international finance. What is brought back? Design doesn't explain, nor is them all. I like to think with this idea of the unique design, of the in Lord of the Ring metaphor of the unique ring. The unique word is the ring, because we need to renounce to enclose the terms different in the same. I must explain it. For me, there is not this idea of there is only design of which everyone only have perspectives, because someone invented the word and it's kind of tricky put before the meeting with any people with the word. But prehistoric, indigenous people of every place, black people, all of them have design. Even that word, design, or the others used to invade culture, civilization, society, are way to them. We talk here about relations between different systems or realities and design doesn't explain them all because it's just one of them. System or reality, so to speak, but without falling back into using the Western ideas of system or realities again as meta pattern. Alice Along the Way, the Brazilian network of design and opressao, guide for several thinkers as Viviana Serpa and Fred Van Afstel, using the work of Paulo Freire and Álvaro Vieira Pinto and Augusto Boal, interesting Latin American thinkers with their own discourses on technology and against perhaps development and capitalism. Alice Along the Way, link conference of my friends in Aotearoa, who brings to the fore ways of research of indigenous people in the global south, and who researchers who are interested in this idea of the south. Every year is organized in a trilingual version, and it's a free event, and I hope some of you will be there in the years ahead, not just as audience, but just presenting their own ideas. Perhaps the return of Polynesian canoes or as Polynesian canoes to the water is a way to recover these other possibilities. When Polynesian voyaging society went to Micronesia, you know, Oceania is divided into Micronesia, Melanesia, and Polynesia. They must go to Micronesia to find an artisan, a craftsman, yet with the abilities to make the canoes navigate with the help of the stars and the current of the sea. And in a process of almost 40 years, people, this guy and the crew of the first canoe or vessels, because I am using again the Western words, unite the huge nation of many islands of Polynesia. You see this triangle between Hawaii and Rapa Nui, the Easter Island from Chile, and Aotearoa, New Zealand, and you see is so few earth and so much water, but for Polynesian people is a nation of water, and that triangle is bigger than the former Soviet Union, and this voyage of the old canoes in the new time, using the skills of the Polynesian people, recovering the alter equivalent of our professions, the tofungas, and with their own expression in Samoan, in Kanaka Maoli from Hawaii, in Aotearoa, was part of a huge Polynesian revival. I don't know if I apologize if in the public there is something from Polynesia, because surely he or she knows much more than me. But with the vessels going from Hawaii to Tahiti to Auckland, all people recover ancient ways, and languages and skills appear all around. And it's very interesting. I have been, along this year, some threshold works, as the work as of my mentor, Albert Rafiti, who symmetrized Western architecture with Samoan ways of constructing, for me, yet using too much European theory and so few Samoan theory. But this is a work that is very interesting for me. Or Johnson Vitehira, who exposes even here in New York, in Times Square, perhaps, if I don't mean a New York place with a London place, but he was interested not in being another Maori designing, but a designer typically Maori, and he invented a graphic design language according to Maori principles that are different, that plane and lane and point. Very, very interesting. The other one, my colleague, a friend from Aotearoa, New Zealand, and from Mexico, from Chiapas, Diana Albarran, about hearting, or thinking with corazonar in Spanish, thinking with heart, about the use of holobil, the artifact to wave clothes from the Mayan peoples, or Sandy Redwing master degree project about a criticism with this idea of pan-indigenism. All Native Americans are the same, were the same, and lives in tipis, when are wigwams, another quantity of dwellings places. And for me, a tipi, an igloo, a bohío, a maloca are not houses. An igloo is an igloo, a maloca is a maloca, and a house is a house. Using the Western terms as master terms lost us, because we are not talking about perspectives. We are talking about different realities. And for me, that is very, very, very important. And perhaps that's all. There in the pictures is Arturo in Barcelona some years ago with me. I like to say thank you to several colleagues from archaeology, because I have met a lot of coincidence between archaeology and design. You know, usually, especially these archaeologists that are decolonial archaeologists, usually design starts in thinkings and end in artifacts, and archaeology is the other way around. You start in artifacts and finish with theories, but they are very, very related. And my friend Virgen Londoño in Santa Marta, Colombia, is studying the canoe building tradition of Tairona peoples, a Native American Colombian people that, according to Colombian history, doesn't exist. Part of Taganga peoples, part of the Tairona nations, because the replacement of all materials by new material, the arrival of plastic changed some things. Of course, indigenous people all around the world can use technologies, and it's very, very interesting this archaeology of the concepts as use the design, kind of design of archaeology and archaeology of design. Some colleagues of mine in Bogotá, as my colleague Fernando Alvarez, call it archaeodesign. In the picture there is also Albert Raffiti and my friends in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And well, perhaps in order to accomplish with the 45 minutes, I pass by some issues. I have or think that I have not created nothing clever, nothing brilliant, but for me, a point to start interesting process of creation, trying to invade our academic textbooks without the words of others, without translated. Perhaps that symmetrizes possibilities, and perhaps that make us realize that over the same materiality overlap not different perspectives of the reality of the people who define reality as the measure of to equate all set of everything, but realities and hits others, realities others. Just to finish, usually when the point is pluriverse, all the people is saying that is an idea of Latin American thinkers related with Zapatista in Mexico, and they are correct, but there is also a North American theory of pluriverse related with some pragmatist philosophers who uses the word. Benjamin P. Blood published in 20 a book named Pluriversal, and there is others that going beyond in time analyze the Native American origin of pragmatist philosophy, and then sometimes in Latin America don't want to hear nothing about this pluriverse created by white North American philosophers, but perhaps they ignore that white American philosophers learn a little bit of Native American philosophers with other names. That's very, very important. And that's all. I love butterflies because they're irregular fly, and I like to honor you as community for our relation in the times to come. Then with all my heart for you all, as a butterfly, thank you.
Thank you so much, Alfredo. A lot of food for thought, and I encourage you, if you have a question, you could come up to this microphone, or you can raise your hand, and one of my colleagues can bring the microphone to you. Thank you so much. Perhaps I will. I'm going to kick the conversation off with a question that your example of tipi, igloo, maloca are not houses. Was such a clear example of your invitation and perhaps insistence that the language and the words and the vocabulary that we have are really not sufficient. And I have my question relates to our interest and focus in the School of Design Strategies to focus on the underlying systems. And I'm curious to hear from you. You also invited us to think about declassification over decolonization. And I wonder, how far back do we need to go in the declassification of a company, a design studio, a design school, a program, a class, to really be able to get to the bottom of what you're discussing, so that we're not only finding ourselves replacing words, such as the example of universe with pluriverse, but so that we're really transforming the way that we're thinking about design and the way we are talking about it and practicing it.
The shortest way to answer that is that I have not any idea, because for me it's important to respect, acknowledge our own ignorance. I'm going to tell you a secret. As I use 2 couples of glasses, it's an honor to see you now, because with the other one I just can see close. Then I see my cousin and my colleague Ignacio from Venezuela here. Now, this coming back to the point of the question, there are a lot of things for me interesting about companies, because for me a lot of companies are all but companions of me. I feel alone with them. Perhaps these have possibilities of uses and other frames to build another meta patterns coming from other people. I don't like the glue house relationship is an example that is not an example. I worry of this idea of example, because usually when the power gives an example, being the power, the provost or the professor, all imitates the example who the power gives to them. And for me, it's very important try to do this symmetrical relationship. But for instance, it's commonplace to talk about Japanese Yakuza as the Japanese mafia, and not the other way around. Mafia is not the Italian Yakuza. That change, switch these things is very interesting. But for me, it's very important to emphasize that it's not just playing with words. No. It's the possibility of get ways of build, because, for instance, instead of philosophy, Maoris has Matauranga, Orticanga, and Andean people has Summa Causai, and they are not philosophers, are similar but different and entirely new. And a computer or a big company or a brand designed or constructed according to that principles would be entirely different and open new possibilities. I am not pretty sure if it's so far back, but the classification theory is not related just with open secret, but let the meaning flow and present categories that are weak from the beginning, categories ready to be replaced or to be objected since the beginning. Perhaps this idea of a very North American idea of the self-made man, or the competition, or we are the huge, the faster, could be defied. Perhaps disability or weakness could be another kind of power to inspire another kind of companies that perhaps make me feel more that are my companions, that are the biggest one from now.
Love that idea to think about our company, external partners, companies, companions. Thank you for that. Any questions from you all? I want to make sure to make space for you all to join this conversation. Yes?
Hello, hi, and thank you for the presentation. I really learned a lot. So I guess my question would be, like, in offering this word, are you trying to offer maybe to get out of academic and design spaces that are Western and really anchor everything in practices that are, well, where they come from and where they actually have the potential to exist and expand? Because if we're thinking about just like taking that word and putting it back into academic spaces, that even if we exchanges or just like not uttering the word other, but just still doing the same work of othering other practices, I feel like the word loses a lot of its meaning and its strength. So I guess that would be my question of like, where do you situate this word? Can it really exist in academic spaces, wherever those academic spaces might be?
Thank you for, again, I have no idea, but what a big question. Thank you for that. I'm going to answer with a digression. What if I am not me? Because that man, the cartel with a long beard and with a cat, I shaved my beard and Pistachio, the cat, passed away 1 year ago, a model cat. But that's a story. Perhaps Alfredo came and Cynthia get an actor to replace, and I am replacing myself and I am not me. I just kidding. But with this idea of the possibilities, I was trying to be kind of trickster, like Coyote in indigenous people thinking that is not a being that jump into the world being the same, but it becomes an entirely different being when change is domain of reality. You know, for me, when you uses the meta pattern and said that, for instance, universe is the same that Pachamama for the Quechuan Aymaras people, or Ao for Maori people, or Lalolagi from Samoan people, you say Lalolagi is the other word from universe, but you in translation lost a lot of power, a lot of possibility, because a centimeter is the same that another centimeter, but an Ao and a different are a huge of difference, even they are similar. That's the interesting thing. I am going to imagine your question about, imagine a bird, the design or the designer is a bird in a cage, in a jail, as a beautiful bird that sings in the academy. If you open the cage and you say, go, bird design, fly away from the academy, but you close the cage and never let design return, you are closing design in the outside, because the idea is change as the coyote, but use one words and one tradition as a tool in the academic, and another because perhaps there are also versions of academic that all the humanity are losing, because usually indigenous people are peasants and camponeses and campesinos, needs a lot of Western experts in order to affirm their rights. You know, the indigenous needs lawyers and architects with standardized knowledge and approval to be even themselves. Yeah, we are losing a lot of people. If it comes to the language, 95 of the people of the planet speak 20 languages, and the other 50% speaks 1,000 languages. We are losing something, because when a language disappear not just words, but ways to create, ways to be. Today, in the class of Professor Jennifer, interesting things happen when we talk about the possibility of use artifacts as totems. Like in Native people, there are people of the clan of the beaver or clan of the eagle. We are people of the backpack, of the cell phone, and when we change our mainframe, talking about language, because for me it was a surprise that there are 15 or 20 students, but just in one house, English was the home language. The other were Yiddish, Hebrew, Farsi, and we all realize that when we change the language, we change. We are another persons, because our gestures are back in our blood, in our bones, according to our mother and grandmothers, and it's very, very interesting. I assure you that in Spanish I am intelligent man. In English, not so.
Yes, let me, I'll pass you my microphone.
Well, first, thank you, Alfredo. It was very, very good. So I had one question, and now it turns that it's like actually two. When you talked about the maloca and tipis and how we compare that to houses, I think we do that because we want to explain it to people, and we want to make clear that someone is understanding what we feel a maloca is. If we say that a maloca is a house, it's not accurate. If we say a maloca is a temple, it's not accurate. If you say that the meaning of a house is the same meaning of a maloca, it's not even close. So my first question for you would be, then, since we shouldn't compare, because it's like languages, like it's never gonna be the same, how should we start explaining those things that belong to the otherness, but we want to put in the same language to people who are the others too, but like a different otherness. And then my second question, when I was thinking of this, was: is there actually a point of explaining it? Like, can we actually do it, or this is just a matter of feelings? In other words,
in some years, I will answer you with a near to smart answer, but we need to be bilingual or trilingual, because we need to honor the academic system. or the standard system, but we use the other channels. Is the way for me to explain, because in the Western tradition, some philosopher as Hans-Georg Gadamer talk about the importance of prejudices, of the judgment that you have before, not in a bad way, but in a good way. Of course, every one of us compares what doesn't know with what we already know. But the problem is when we do the comparison with asking to the other what it is. That in between is very, very interesting. For instance, for me it was very interesting to discover that coming to the point of Native Americans, I grew up believing, same happened in Colombia, that they were called themselves, but a lot of their names were given by another people. They are not Sioux but Lakota, not Iroquois but Haudenosaunee, no Navajo but Dene. In Colombia it's the same. We grow up with Paez and Guambiano, and they call themselves Nasa and Misak. And it's very interesting the way others see you, and as you see them themselves, then commonplace is needed. The house as a standard to understand each other. But imagine the all example they appear of my grandma, that languages and dictionaries. When I start learning, I need to translate, and to talk in English, I need the dictionary English, Spanish, that just uses equivalence, words similar. But when you learn, you go to English dictionary, and you realize that the same word in English has different roots than in Spanish, because you go to an explanation that uses the brothers and sisters of the word you are using. And that's important. And I was just talking about cultures of people who write, but what about, we are talking about oral peoples. This idea of the cult and non-cult people is guilty of such a quantity of injustice, because with this idea of the social contract that no one people in history signed that contract, a lot of oral peoples were transformed into ignorance, and were ignorant, and they have a lot of possibilities. In our groups, one day we exchange just our grandmothers and grandfathers' sayings, and a lot of people never write and never read. I am not talking about indigenous people in lost places in the world. A lot of people who is working, doing our houses, our avenues, never, and they know a lot. They are face and gesture cultures. In Spokane, Washington State, 3 years ago, I know, I don't remember. I'm sorry with her, because in this moment her name escaped me. But she presented his conference saying that according to the stereotypes, she doesn't exist, because she were born in Sierra Leone in Africa, grew up in Jamaica, then moved to Puerto Rico, then to the Washington State, and but the conference was about the gesture of the Pacific Islander and the Antilles Island, and present some gestures, especially of mulatto, black, Caribbean, Native American mixed people, that practically everyone in the Antille Island, even they are French-speaking or Dutch-speaking, of Spanish-speaking or French-speaking, people from Haiti or Jamaica or Cuba understand the same gestures, because are related with something that is beyond the language. Academy make our bodies also blind and deaf and non-expressive bodies. and it's very important this possibility of to enter in another channels. I know that I disagree, but for me it's very important degree. When you miss the point in the economy regime of meaning, you must either faster to point A to point B. But if you go in another places, you can go from point A to point B, giving around through all the earth, and you arrive perhaps for a more important, a more interesting place, a more sustainable, a more human, a more all-encompassing point.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Any final questions? Yes, Karai. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring. My name is Koray. I teach at Design Strategies. I love the talk, and the main proposition is Desabons is a generalization to call the practices that in diverse human groups fulfill a function like the design of the West, right? I'm trying to understand what's going on here. Are you trying to make us visible, an invisible, discursive, or practical power field like Orientalism of Edward Said, or patriarchy like or patriarchy of, say, Judith Butler, that operated to do things without us knowing about it, and then by performation of our subjectivities, or distributed our awareness about space as a specific way of politics in the case of Orientalism? Is this, but their critique was not critique of politics. They didn't say that, oh, I don't like politics, we need to find something else. They didn't say, I don't like art. They didn't say gender is bad, we gotta find something else. Their critique was about a specific way of doing things on the ground. Your critique seems to be more radical. It's as if calling like politics, this is Western, let's do something else. Is this what you wanna say? First point. Second, you seem to be reproducing design itself by creating its other, by drawing on the very definition of design. Because, after all, you're presenting the other with reference to it. Why wouldn't it create another problem of totalizing modern intervention? These are also some of the questions that I work with. It's not a critique. I really want to understand where you come from. Thank you.
Thank you again. Imagine that the guy, the man or woman who gives the lecture knows more, for me is stupid. It's just my position. I would like to exchange with you and with all the people who ask me questions, because according to the classification theory that I like a lot, we cause, as with all critics, because I critics all the critics theory, we cause or inscript the problems we try to solve, and we create new ones, especially because perhaps with the so ones can happen the same that with pluriverse, and there are, I don't like to talk about the uses by knowledge people and the uses by ignorant people. I just take into account the possibility of fail, of I don't remember how do you say equivocaciones en español, en inglés, equivocation, no, wrongdoings. The possibility that in the same place, when we hear the same word, even we're thinking about different things. According to this idea of subtleties is very important for me, because a challenge for me is how do you use ideas as mine of some of my colleagues to produce things and not use them to to generate paralysis by excessive analysis, that we are not going to do nothing because all is problematic. I remember the perhaps Paul Virillo, perhaps, theory about integral accident. The guy who designed the car also designed kind of car crashes, designing the car. It happened with human making, but yeah, it's paradoxically, it's a paradox that I try to criticize generalization with some things that could be used to generalize, and myself being victim of my own generalizations. And that could be that in this moment, perhaps to be more, to whip something with your question and my possible answer, we need to talk more. I like this possibility of the conversation, and in risk being accused of storyteller, I'm going to ask with another metaphor of another interesting philosopher of design, Willem Flusser. He has a very interesting, it's the same of the cage of the bird, but he has a very interesting text named Skin in English, or Haut in German, or Piel in Espanol, when he says that a healthy skin absorbs and exudes, or how do you say exuda? How?
Exhales or sweats.
Yeah. The poro.
A pore.
The pore must be open. If the pore is closed in every direction, the body gets sick, and that's all. The real conversations and the real design project, if there are such things as real, change a lot of things forever. And as the very interesting journey, you never even return to the place you departed. I don't like to try to answer with the reason, or with the I don't like definitions, or just like definition as provisional understandings, and that's very, very important. And relation with artifacts, provisional understanding is a good approximation to drafts, to possibilities of doing things, but it's difficult to do things that plays to everyone and benefit to everyone, don't mark privilege. And of course, I am trying to criticize design, being myself a faculty of design with 30 years of career, but I don't remember who was the one who said that the anarchist that wish to criticize the law must be an expert in the law that he wants to destroy. And that was the answer. In the first day of my PhD, my director asked me, because I tried to explain what I'm trying to do, then what are you doing in the university? If according to you, design a university are Western, blah, 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 blah. And then I told you, it's the life that I have and I can change. And in an economic answer, I must finishing my PhD. And why not finishing with my own claims about my life? Because in order to get the more earnings of your academic career, you must be a slave of academic for all your life. You know, I suppose that our rector and deans and provosts know that. If you succeed, you have devoted hours and hours and times and all the time of your life to the university. That's my incomplete and unfinished answer.
Alfredo, thank you so much. Please join me in a round of applause. Thank you.